And I press start. Okay, hello, welcome everyone. You're on the 99% channel, and we have a special guest today for an interview. It's Rafi Faber from Israel. Rafi Faber is a financial journalist, an author, a blogger, a money advocate, I could say, and you're very big on precious metals like gold and silver. Rafi, welcome today to the program, and thank you
Thanks
for
for
having
having
this
me.
interview.
Thanks
Rafi,
for having
before
me.
we get into some questions, what can you tell us about yourself in order for people that are listening to get a picture of, okay, why should I listen to this guy? Anything you want to share?
What should you know about me? Well, okay. I became a libertarian about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, around 2011, 2012. And I was listening to Ron Paul, and he kind of answered a lot of questions I had when I was a teenager that nobody even said were questions. So
Right.
um, then I got more and more into the money question, and I started to realize that it's the money that fuels the entire corrupted system that just keeps getting worse and worse. And I've been understanding that an end game is coming. And then when the medical tyranny kind of kicked in, I realized that we're in the accelerated phase now, and we got to get serious because it was only like a fantasy in my head. Not a fantasy. I knew it was going to happen. I didn't see a shape to it because everything was just like moving along. And then all of a sudden we see this massive deterioration in society, in sexual morality, in morality in general. People are losing their sense of logic and even the most basic subjects. Nobody even knows what a male and a female is anymore. And you can only get this kind of insanity when there's so much inflation. I'm not talking about price increases, but I'm talking about just inflation of the money that's just spread everywhere, that nobody thinks anymore about anything, and nobody really even knows what work is, because the the division of labor is so cockeyed from the inflated money that's being sent everywhere that people lost their fulfillment in life and don't even know what the point of being alive is anymore. Most people. And the core of the understanding is in our community, and the people that really understand that what's fueling excuse me, that what's fueling the corruption is the money. And any side of it that you may find is really pissing you off. It could be the war part, the military-industrial complex, the pharma-industrial complex, education, or the lack of it. It's all the same thing. It's all fueled by the money. So my main message is, if we can conquer the money, which means, buy gold and silver and understand that is money and the rest is just a derivative, then we can focus our power on what needs to be done, and that is we need to reset the system. We need to have our own reset, not WEF reset, which is not going to work, but we have to reset the system ourselves, and that's my message.
Wow, man, that's a lot. You answered a lot of questions I had written down. But I can see you're a passionate speaker, and I really appreciate this answer. It's a complete answer. Okay, well, you touched upon this in your answer. You call yourself the endgame investor. So what I gather from your introduction here is that you take that very literally. I was going to ask you, is this more like a catchy name? But I can sense it's literal. Is this correct?
I was just, when I started the service, when I started the endgame investor, I was just, it was initially the libertarian investor. That was like what I was thinking about, but like, I didn't like the sound of that, and neither did Seeking Alpha, who manages the back end of the newsletter. And so I was like, this is an endgame, so I guess endgame investor sounds better. So it's either investing for the endgame or investing in the endgame. But it's not really like investment advice, right? That's not what I do really. My talent is, and it's where my emotional security is. Like, I know and I understand that gold and silver are money, and what we need to do is we need to stockpile money for the end game, so when it comes and nobody has any money, we will be able to provide that money. It's not about us amassing wealth, which is just a side effect of this. It's about us stockpiling money now so that we can recirculate it when we need to preserve whatever is left of a division of labor once the monetary unit collapses. In order to do that, in order to survive the ups and downs, right? And it's going to get much more volatile as we get closer to the end game. People are going to suffer through emotional highs and lows. Even the people that understand it, even myself, I'm not claiming that I'm, completely detached and I'm like a Vulcan or some kind of spiritual being or something. No, I'm a human being. And when my portfolio goes up, I get excited. When it goes down, I get a little, discouraged. But I understand what the reality is, and it can't be changed by what I think or feel. So what I do is I try to guide people emotionally through what's going on so that they can see it logically, so they can kind of separate the emotions from the logic of what is happening, so they can keep their eye on the ball and keep calm and keep collected and not be affected by the insanity of it all. And I'm really, when I'm writing, I'm speaking to myself and letting people listen, because this is what I say to myself, and this is how I'm getting through it.
Right. Cool. Yeah. Um, I want to ask you, how do you see this end game? Like there's a couple of versions I have in my head, but before you answer that question, maybe it's good to land upon what do you think is causing this inflation, and to make sure you understand me correctly, we know this is probably being done by the establishment, the people in power. So my question, to better phrase my question, is what mechanisms are they using to inflate the currency we are currently using? Is that a question you can answer for our listeners?
I'm not sure how much of a question it is. What mechanisms are they using? They increase the money substitute supply. Inflation is just it's another word for lying, right? Money, gold and silver are money, and the currencies that we all have are either direct substitutes for gold or they're substitutes for those substitutes. So the dollar, what they call the reserve currency of the world, is really the standard go-to gold substitute of the world. Now, the message that I try to hammer away, what really most people in the gold and silver community do not really understand, although if I explain it to them one on one, they'll get it, is that there's no such thing as a fiat currency, and we're not off the gold standard. What our goal should be as gold and silver stackers is to force the currencies off the gold standard or off the dollar standard, and then force the dollar off the gold standard. How do you force the dollar off the gold standard? What is the gold standard? The gold standard is the exchangeability between gold and the dollar. That is the gold standard, because you can exchange them. You can still, exchange the dollar for gold and the gold for a dollar. It still works. What we have to do is we have to end that. That ends the ability of the government to inflate. By inflate, I mean increase the dollar supply, because when they increase the dollar supply, what they are doing is they're stealing what remains of the gold value of the dollar, and then spending it into circulation and amassing goods and services for themselves at our expense. And by doing that, they pollute any system that they push that money into, or push those money substitutes into. So we're trying to stop the corruption and stop the inflation. It's all the same thing. It's the same source. But by taking the dollar off the gold standard, we're trying to make the exchange between gold and the dollar infinity. And then they can print as many dollars as they want. They won't be able to amass any more wealth by doing that, and neither will anyone else by earning dollars either. Which it's going to take a lot of people out. It's going to unemploy a lot of people, including gender ideologists, whatever they have in the education system, bad doctors, people in the CDC, people in the military-industrial complex. They'll all become unemployed, and they're going to be dangerous when they're unemployed. So it'll be our job to find things for them to do with the money that we have, so we can employ them, picking oranges or whatever the hell.
Right, because that's what my first question is. So if I imagine the end game, and if I take a biblical interpretation, the end game is really the end game. It's the end. However, in the version I get from what I've seen from you and what I hear in this interview, is that you are a bit more optimistic than purists, biblical purists would be. If I interpret it correctly, you think there is a way for us to channel the financial endgame, at least, in a way that will allow us to that we do not fall into tyranny or into barbarism, which I think is it seems to be the end game is either going to be that way. Like if the establishment get their way with the digital currency, if they control the currency digitally, that will be total tyranny, I think. However, if that fails, if that system collapses and it cannot be channeled, then I think we're falling into barbarism. Would you agree with that?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't agree with that. First of all, I am a biblical purist. I'm not sure what Bible you're referring to. If it's the Christian Bible, I don't really know it.
I'm
Um,
a
uh,
Christian, so okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
yeah. So, yeah, I don't know that one. So I am a biblical purist, and I am an optimist, because I think the at least my Bible's position is that tyranny is impossible. I mean,
Right,
you can have theft, you can have you can have a tyrannical leader for a while, but we know from the Book of Genesis that the Tower of Babel always collapses. God will not let a tyranny continue, not by in the sense of God's sleeping and then one day he wakes up and says, "Wait a second, what's going on here? I got to do something." Like that's not how God operates. That's just how the story is told, so we can understand it. But he set up the world in a way where it is literally impossible for a tyrannical whoever it is to take over the planet indefinitely. That it can't work that way. And
right,
just logically, look, if I quote this rabbi a lot. His name is Rabbi Sadia Gaon. He wrote a philosophical treatise in the year 800, about 1,200 years ago. And in it, he asks a basic question: why does God prohibit stealing? Well, because if the Bible permitted stealing, then everyone would steal, nobody would produce everything, and everyone would die. It's very simple.
it is.
So he says, like, you can have a society where people steal things. But what you do is you try to control that and punish it and keep it limited. But once you have a society that's based on the idea of theft as a good, as an ideal, then your society is going to fall apart. Okay, because no one's going to produce anything, and you're all going to starve eventually. So even the tyrannical leaders, they can keep stealing from you, but they will run out of resources. So there's no such thing. It is impossible for the elite to control society by means of a CBDC, of a central bank digital currency, because even if you go back to monetary logic, back to Mises, right, who came up with the idea of the monetary regression theorem or the monetary regression principle, all currencies, whether they're paper or digital or Bitcoin, it's all the same thing. They're all based on the price system of the past. So central bank digital currency would be more controllable, yeah, for a while, but eventually that would hyperinflate also. And once that hyperinflates, what are they going to do? A central bank digital currency derivative? Like there's only so much you can build the Tower of Babel before it falls over.
Right,
So yeah, that like there's no such thing as perpetual tyranny. You got to get that out of your head and start being optimistic and realize that we are hacking away at the base of this entire pyramid. It's inverted pyramid. It's an inverted pyramid because it gets higher and higher. And there's a tiny little base. We just keep chipping away at it and chipping away. We will push the whole thing over. And then yeah, look, I'm not denying that it's going to be tough after that for a while. But the more money we have, the more gelled we are as a community, the more we talk to each other and the more we can organize things from the bottom up, the better our chances of getting through this with less damage. There's going to be damage. I'm not saying it's going to be amazing, but the more people we can get into it now, the broader base of the new base of the pyramid we can build, the more people that have gold and silver, even small amounts of it, the more people will have to rebuild a society based on something honest. So stop worrying about perpetual tyranny. That's not how God created the world.
right. Well, that's solid. I can see the optimism in your rant here, which is good because what I've seen on YouTube, I've watched a couple of your blogs, and I got the impression that you were well, bitter is not the right word. You are
I'm
at least a
pissed.
realist, based, yeah, a realist. But I can sense a lot of optimism in you right now, and that's very encouraging. So, your stance is we have to take precious metals like gold and silver to the people so that the establishment, the banks, they can't inflate that. They can't covertly add taxes to it by printing more gold or silver. Is it correct?
Yeah, but it's more than that. It's that when they inflate, what are they doing? They're inflating the currency over the gold and silver supply. It's still based on that. So whatever perspective you want to take, if you want to take, I'm scared and I want to protect my family, fine. But what motivates me is not necessarily thinking about how rich I'll be or how protected my family will be, and I want that. Like I am motivated by that. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to call attention to their weak spot, which is the actual money that they use to control all of the parts of the economy that they control. Right? Once they can no longer inflate the currency they can print as much currency as they want. They can print infinite amount. They can't buy an infinite amount of stuff with that stuff that they print. They can only extract more gold and silver value from the currency until there's none left.
Right.
And once there is none left, then what power does Klaus Schwab have? What power does Mark Rutte have? What that bastard? What power was Justin Trudeau have? They all have their power from the same thing. They can print money with their central bank and then pay off their thugs to harass us and kill us and shoot us up with crap. And I want that to end. So I want the people, the middle class, the rich. I want us all to work together to acquire whatever gold and silver that we can responsibly. I'm not saying go into debt. I'm not saying zero out your dollars or your euros and take a risk. I'm saying do this methodically every month, some amount that is safe for you to acquire the gold or silver or both, and put it away and hollow out the base until it falls over and we're freed.
Right. All right. So, Rafi, I'm coming from the perspective of a prepper. I'm sure you know what it means, but for the audience, if somebody doesn't know, a prepping is derived from preparing, and a prepper is somebody who prepares for whatever a grid down situation can happen, whether that is a power outage or a long-term societal decline. And a prepper is somebody who tries to arrange their lives in a way that they can always foresee for their water, their food, their defense, and craftsmanship. So the prepper's dream is a place where they can live totally off-grid, needing nothing from a power grid or a water grid or whatever. They all live self-sufficient. When I think about the end game, I'm envisioning something, a situation where the life I have right now can still be led to a certain extent. Of course, a lot of luxuries will fall away, but I will stay alive, definitely. In whatever end game will come, whatever, let's say, temporary totalitarian system will come, do you think the preppers are worthy people in that new situation? Or do you think that the mindset of a prepper is going against what you want to do? Because as a prepper, gold and silver are very low on my list. As a prepper, I think, well, if there is no food production, I cannot exchange gold or metal because people cannot consume it. What are your views on that? What could you tell me?
Okay, so about prepping first. I have nothing wrong with prepping. I'm not that much of a prepper. I'm like a very how do you say, Roche Tevot, or like a general prepper. Like I live in the Golan in Israel because there's rivers around me and there's like wild herbs growing everywhere, and just generally that makes me more comfortable. I'm not in like a high-rise building. I'm not around huge crowds of people. I had a gun at one point, but it was confiscated from me because I was accused of assault for trying to drop my daughter off at kindergarten, but that's another story. I'm trying to get it back. I think I'm blacklisted, but like I had it for 2 weeks. My attitude toward prepping is, look, I'm a religious guy. God definitely wants us to prepare, and He doesn't want us to just pray and do nothing. But I'm not really so much. It might be me being lazy. It might be me just saying I'm not an expert at this, and I have lacking confidence. But I'm not going to prepare every single corner of my life to be off the grid. And I think that people who only focus on that, it's a problem. Because personally, I don't think that if you do not have the comfort, the emotional comfort and understanding that there is a creator of the universe who is watching as this unfolds, and he's with us, then I don't know how you'll make it emotionally through what's going to come. Because I don't really know what's going to come, and we can be surprised by anything. And you say, well, I'll definitely be alive. Well, maybe you won't. I mean, anything could happen. So primarily, I have faith in God. And secondarily, I do prep on my own level, which is why I live here and why I got a gun. And it was taken away from me after 2 weeks. I was like, look, if God doesn't want me to have a gun, I won't have a gun. I'll try to get it back, but I'm not going to worry if I can't get it back. Maybe I'm not supposed to have one. I don't know. In terms of the gold and silver, it being last on your list, I think that is a big mistake. Because you have to. It comes from a fundamental lack of understanding of what the division of labor even is, right? Gold and silver are money, right? Without money, you can't have a division of labor. If we're talking about the breakdown of society and total totalitarianism, you're talking about the breakdown of the division of labor. Nobody knows what they're supposed to do. Everybody's trying to be self-sufficient, and that's not going to work, and everyone's going to starve to death. And even if you're self-sufficient, but nobody around you is, then the people who are not self-sufficient are going to come hoarding your homestead and take your stuff.
Yep.
And that's going to be it. So the safest thing that you can do, besides your homestead, the first thing you should do is amass money so that you can employ people. So look, there's food growing all around us. I mean, it's not like when the monetary system collapses, everyone's going to forget how to grow food. People know how to grow food. There's going to be capital. There's going to be stuff. There's going to be tools. What there is not going to be is a way to divide this labor to figure out who's going to grow the food and sell it for what. What you need for that, you need money. People need money. You need a big base of people with a lot of money to restart the economic circulatory system, so that people know what they're going to do, so that they won't hound and zombie apocalypse your homestead. So the most important thing you got to do is get money. That's what divides labor. You can't eat gold, but you know what you can do? You can buy things with it. That's what money does.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. That's an enlightening answer. Maybe we can zone out for a minute. In your introduction, I could taste some. You talked about people don't know what a man is anymore. Let's put the financial things a little bit behind us, and can you talk a little bit about your views on what is currently happening in the world? You mentioned people don't know what a man is anymore. Recently in the Netherlands, a guy won the Miss Universe of at least of the Netherlands. What are your views on this?
Okay.
Pretty open question.
So I'll start with this. If you read the book of the opening chapters of Genesis, I think it's in the first chapter. Okay, it's on day 6. Day 5, the animals were created. Day 6, the beginning of day 6, the mammals were created. The birds on day 5. There's only one animal in the world that the Bible specifically specifies. That's redundant. It specifically says that God created this animal, male and female. There's only one, right? And that is humans. It doesn't mean to say that he didn't create the rest of the world male and female, but it's telling us like we have to remember that we are male and female. That's how God created us, and we should know that. It's like the Bible doesn't use extra words for no reason. We know we're male and female, but it's reminding us that we're going to forget this at some point. About on the story of the flood. Right, there's a lot of textual hints in the Hebrew But I'm not going to get into how the rabbis interpret the flood story or how they tease this out of the text all the time. But there's Jewish ways of learning the wording that hint that what the main problem with the generation of the flood was that they were just mixing everything together, and nothing was stratified. Like there was homosexual marriage, there was bestiality, there were people denying species barriers, and look, these things happen, and I understand that it homosexuality exists in nature, and I don't personally have a problem with people who are inclined that way. But when you're trying to make it a societal value, like everything is fine and everything, you can do whatever you want and there's no consequences, that's a problem. We're seeing that, right? So the way that I frame it in my mind is like, come out of the closet, fine, but please just stay in the bedroom, will you? For whatever you want to do, I don't care. But we're returning to the generation of the flood, and the flood in Hebrew is the word that's used is mabul, which means mixing, right? So God is saying, if you're going to mix everything up and get rid of the boundaries that I set, then fine, I'll mix everything up and I'll flood you all, and then I'll start over. So that's where we are, and what began the generation of the flood. The verse says, "Vatim aleha haaretz Hamas," that the world was full of Hamas, and Hamas you might recognize as the terrorist organization, the Arab terrorist organization that kills people.
Yep.
But in Hebrew, the word Hamas means theft. It means theft and destruction. So the Bible starts with that generation as what was their main sin? It was theft. And theft leads to all this stuff. When you base your society on inflation, you're going to get the mixing of everything. No boundaries in anything. That's because where we are.
I want to ask, if I'm sorry, if I can interrupt you.
Sure.
What I gather is that the push for diversity and multisexualism, that push is coming from the same establishment as the establishment that is pushing for digital currency, the same establishment that is behind the inflation. And my question to you is, do you think that they are doing this purposely to maybe distract us? Or is this something like a thermometer, like when it's hot outside, the thermometer goes up? So is the equality and the multisexualism, is that the thermometer in this society?
Yeah, yes. I'm not the kind of conspiracy theorist, though I can't really prove there is one or isn't one. But from what I see of the collapse of society in many different instances, and we've been through. I mean, the Jewish people, and I speak for them, not because I'm an official spokesman, but I know how they think, and I know how we think. We've been through this many times. We've been through many collapsed societies. We've lived through it. We lived through the collapse of the Roman Empire, and it's something that I have messages from the past explaining how that happened from our own perspective. So I have like an inside look into what actually happened, and you can see around the early stage of the Roman Empire, we were allies around the time of Hanukkah with the Maccabees, so we allied with them. And then as they slowly deteriorated, they increased their taxes and they pissed us off, and then we had to fight them off, and then they came and invaded us again. And then Rome just like kind of fell apart. So it was the same pattern. So are there really like a group of people that have this like plan in their heads that this is how they want to destroy society, or is this just how evil functions? Because the word for evil in Hebrew comes from the word unstable. It's an unstable system. It cannot stabilize, right? Because once evil takes over, it falls over, because evil fights itself, right? Because you have no unified front here. I just gave a class about this on my Patreon, where I talk about these biblical ideas. But there's one episode in the book of Numbers where where a group of people is fighting Moses for leadership, and it says that the people are fighting Moses, but Moses is not fighting them. It uses different words. And why is it? Because there's really no unified front here. There's like a group of people that each have their own they each have their own agendas because they all want to be the top guy, and
Right.
there's no unified conspiracy front where they're planning something where once they win, there's going to be this guy on the top, and then these people are going to be the lieutenants, and it's all like politics. It's like they're all trying to get to the top of the mountain, and they'll kill each other to get there. So this is just the general direction of evil. It's where it always goes. It's where it's gone in every collapsed society beforehand, and it's where it's going now. And we just have to recognize it and understand what's happening, and how to stop it is we get rid of the monetary system as it is, and then things will return to normal with a lot of pain and actually a lot of death. I think we just have to do the best we can to get through it.
Yeah, right. These are very encouraging words. Yeah. I didn't realize before you said, but the Jewish people have been through a lot of collapses. I would think that the German Empire collapse is just another one. Here
Yeah.
in the Netherlands, as being the neighbors of Germany, we had a lot of Jewish people in the Netherlands, and some of them, they survived the camps and wrote books. And I've read some of those books, and they they tell a horrible story, but I mean the Jewish people are still here in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right,
People want to see the Holocaust as unique. I don't see it that way.
right,
It's another instance of we went through a civilizational collapse in Europe in the 1930s and 40s, and we were victims of it, just like we're victims of every civilizational collapse that happens that we're in. Because why? Well, we're conspicuous. We sort of like end up on the top of things. And you can explain that pretty logically in the Roman period, because we have like a religious commandment to teach our kids how to read and learn,
right,
and read the Bible. That's like a commandment for each father to teach his kid how to read. So like we end up being literate in a society where most people are illiterate. So then what happens naturally? Like we just rise to the top.
right.
Um, so then
Climb
we're
the
just
harder the fall.
conspicuous everywhere, and then we end up at the top. We're also at the top in both places. Like we're at the top of the good and the top of the bad, and we're just like fighting each other all the time. So that's how the world is structured. I mean, I just gotta recognize where we are, and who are the leaders. That's all.
So, what do you say? There's no great conspiracy, and it sounds logically like they all want to be on the top. As soon as
Yeah.
there is a rush to get to the top, they'll kill each other. The people that we're talking about, um, from what I see in the channel and from my own beliefs, is I don't really think that our politicians are the people in power here. What are your views on that?
I don't know exactly who's in power. I don't think there's any one person in power. I think there are warring factions that unite for expedience sake. If you're going to ask me who's the guy on top, I don't think there is one. I just think that there's a system of inflation that and the evil powers stuff money wherever it is they need to stuff it to placate whoever it is they're trying to placate, and whoever has the most money at any one time, or the most pressure points, they end up being on the top for that fleeting moment, and then it moves to somebody else. It's like I don't know if I'm saying this right, but I think it's a Christian idea or a Christian conception that the devil kind of like inhabits people from time to time, and it just like moves around. And I think that's actually a pretty useful. It's a useful visualization. It's a useful way of thinking, because that's really what's happening. It's the force of evil that's infecting different minds and moving from party to party, and just like screwing everything up. So I don't think there's one guy in charge. I don't think there's one power center. There is one power center, and it's the money itself. Like, come back to reality. Like, forget about trying to take out that one guy, because if you take out that one guy, just the next guy is going to take his place at the top. So you got to take away what's feeding all of them.
Right. That's very. It sounds logically. Yeah. All right. Rafi, I'm gonna see. I have one. We have one listener,
Okay.
and I'm out of questions. So we can ask.
Wait, can I ask you a question?
Of course, you can. Yeah.
Can you explain to me what's going on with Mark Rutte? Did he really fall, or is he just going to be reelected, or is there something? Are the farmers fighting back in a serious way? Is there any hope here
Oh, for the
in the short
Netherlands.
term? I mean?
I am not. I'm not pessimistic, but I'm definitely not optimistic about the game. And whenever I refer to the game, and you have to know these are my personal views on the matter, but I'm someone who, like you, thinks a lot about things. And in this case, what's going on? So the cabinet has fallen, quote unquote, fallen. The exact
Mm,
same thing happened during the COVID period, and we had a demissionary cabinet, and that's a cabinet that has more power because the cabinet cannot be sent away. They're the missionary did. We have to have elections first before they can go. And what they did during that period is they pushed a lot of new laws that would otherwise would have been challenged, and they couldn't have been challenged. So to see the cabinet has fallen today again, to me tells me, okay, we're gonna have another push for new laws. That's what I think is going to happen. Um, as for the farmers, yeah, the farmers are. We have a lot of farmers in the Netherlands. And farmers, I think, are people that scare the people in power because for example, I'm a teacher, and when the
mhm.
teachers go on strike or we protest, it's just a bunch of smart people, but we're civilized. We make up songs and we make up catchy rhymes to convey our points. But when you piss off a bunch of farmers, they're gonna come with heavy equipment and they're gonna spray shit over your house. So
Right.
there are people with power. There are people, a group of in the Netherlands that have kind of have the ability to get their way if they really want to, if they really unite. So
Mhm.
what happened in the Netherlands is that we had elections, provisional elections, um, and the type of elections we have in the Netherlands, to explain, is we have three types. So there are the local ones for when you're in town or in a village, local politicians, the mayor and the people below the mayor. That's local. And the second one is the whole country, so the parties for the whole country. And those are actually the two that are most important. The third one, the provisional, are regions, but they don't really do much. They don't really have much to say in the whole scheme of things. So they are really kind of a redundant way of um, trying to see where are the people standing, which parties are popular and which are not. And what happened with the provisional elections recently, like a year, no, a half a year ago, is that one of the parties that won was the Farmers Party. At least they say they are the Farmers Party, but it's completely evident they are not Farmers Party, because if you read their plans, their program, they're actually pro disowning the farmers, but they say, well, we want them to have a better compensation, which is to say, we still want to disown them. It sounds like something positive, but I don't think it is at all,
Right. It's a
because
trick. It's a trick. Yeah.
exactly, it's a trick. The economy of the Netherlands is partly based on the exports of our food, and we export a lot of food. These farmers in the Netherlands, they're really passionate and they're really smart when it comes to how can I get as much money as possible from this plot of land. They have a really efficient system, and I think we can have as much as four harvests in 1 year from a plot of land, because they know exactly which things to do with the land, which crops to grow, when to introduce the cows, when to grow the next crops. And it's based also a little bit maybe on luck, because we can have a bad season when it comes to a little rainfall or a little sunshine. But all in all, they're really smart farmers. And
Hmm.
for this farmer party to be pro disowning the farmers is not at all being pro farmers. So we had that win, quote unquote win. But now with this new cabinet that's fallen, it's fallen amongst other things also because of this farmer party. because of the votes that have been given. And now that the cabinet is the missionary again, it's gonna be I think this, a lot of the same. But I also see a possibility that the establishment really leaves the scene, and that they will give the opposition now the power, all to see it all collapse, to have a financial collapse, and that people say, okay, this opposition doesn't know how to handle finances. We want the older people back. Um, However the case, I think it's all a play. And whenever I speak to people, I imagine them like children talking about a puppet show, like the puppets were real. But
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me, I don't think the puppets have any power. They just do what they're being told by higher ups. And people higher up will be people in power when it comes to finances, so bankers, investors, maybe the food industry. There's a lot of power in the food industry. Big Pharma obviously has a lot of power. We've seen that the last
Hmm.
couple of 3 years that pharma has dictated the new laws coming into play. There is nothing going on health-wise with the new laws. It's not a law about health, because if it was about health, I don't think the laws would say, "Oh, if this happens, you can't go outside. You can't do this. You can't do that." Real good laws would say, okay, if this happens, if there's a pandemic, help your neighbor, save on food. It would give you advice that works. But we were treated like little children. I think it's obviously a play of power. So to answer your
Hmm.
question, is something hopeful going on in the Netherlands? I think it's further going down decline, but I am optimistic in a sense that I think that people can only be pushed so far, and these farmers, they haven't given up at all. I think there's a lot of hope for the farmers if they unite and bond together, and the people in the cities, they can get behind the farmers. Then it's over, and
Yeah.
they know it.
Okay. Good.
It's a complete
We'll
answer, I hope.
yeah. Yeah. We'll get through it. I don't know. We don't know exactly how, but we will win because there's there is no other option.
Yeah, I agree with that. The way I see it, I think this establishment, whether that's organized or just a loosely bunch of people that have uneasy truces now because it serves them, but there are people in power working together. I think we may agree on that. Whatever they think they can do, I think that what they think they can do is just have machines do the work, do the labor, and get rid of us. Um, and they are talking about augmenting themselves, bettering themselves. Remove your eyeballs, put a bunch of cameras in there. Remove your muscles, put a bunch of hydraulic systems in there. We can upgrade ourselves. But I think that they're forgetting that when they turn themselves into machines, they will lose what it is to be human, and they will even lose their hunger for greed, for more. Um, because I don't
Yeah.
think that two toasters are going to compete in who toasts the best bread. They're just machines, and I think in that they will lose, because if they let the machines do the work for them, they will become obsolete for the machines at one point. So
Right.
yeah,
There,
I'm hopeful that good will win, but I am dreading what we have to go through to get there.
yeah. Don't dread it. Just just let it come and let it flow through you. And whatever happens, happens. It's not up to us exactly what we have to go through. We just have to do our part. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. Hey, Rafi, I really enjoyed this interview. I think these are nice words to end the interview, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Unless there's things you want to discuss. But before we stop, maybe you want to plug your socials, maybe a book you've written. Um, Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, my main thing is the endgame investor. You can look that up anywhere, and you'll find it the first link. It's a service through Seeking Alpha, and I write about 3 or 4 times a week. And again, it's about getting people psychologically and emotionally through the end game, and it's mostly monetary analysis of the gold and silver markets and the dollar, and central banks and stuff like that from an Austrian economics perspective. Or you can check me out on Patreon, patreon.com/endgameinvestor, where I give a more biblical angle on these things, about once a week I do a video on usually what the Jewish people are reading in the Torah that week and related to monetary or government topics. You can check me out on YouTube. I put out a video once or twice a week, sometimes an interview, sometimes me just going off on something. I try to make it funny. Or Twitter at Rafi Faber. And if you want to read a book, what my recommendation would be "What Has Government Done to Our Money" by Murray Rothbard, or Man, Economy, and State by Murray Rothbard. That would be the two books I would recommend. But Man, Economy, and State is pretty long, but it'll give you a good package of what Austrian economics is and how the world actually works in terms of exchange.
Right. All right. Well, Rafi, thank you very much for coming on the show. Really appreciated it. And let's end the show right there. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
All right.